everyone, welcome back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing absolutely awesome here on a Friday. If you are new around here, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. It absolutely helps the channel out so much. I can't thank you enough. The support this year has been nothing short of phenomenal, so thank you so much for that. You can go a step further and become a member of the channel. The link is in the description there. We sponsor Dom McCoy, have a bit of fun, things like that. So if you want to do that and that interests you, you can financially support the channel that way. And if you are a returning Pominozer, you're right, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. So obviously it's preview time. We've changed it up a little bit. We're always evolving here at Pominoz. We never stay stagnant. If you stay still, you get caught. The old football term. So let's get into it. So the backstory then, Carlton versus Port Adelaide. Now, Port Adelaide have been on a real piss-poor run, let's be honest. They've really struggled this season. 4 games, 4 losses, and a 69 percentage. It's not good. Last time out, obviously, they got hammered by the Demons, and it was a weird one to watch this if you watch this game. It's going to be a tale of the tape here because Carlton were weird as well, but you watched them last week. They really did go. They had the most marks they've ever recorded in a half. They tried to control the footy. You could see it was a team that was tentative. You could see a team that was under all sorts of pressure. And despite them being quite offensive this season, which you expect from Port Adelaide, they're a very offensive side. Ranked 4th and 6th for disposals and inside 50s. Differential, they really go for it. But the big thing is for them, bottom 2 for inside 50s to chance creation. And they're really missing key cornerstones such as players like Dixon. That forward line isn't working so well. And what we have seen this year from them is teams that pressure them around the ball, particularly in the forward line, they're going to get a lot of opportunities to be able to rebound, which is interesting for Carlton. Carlton, on the other hand, 3-1, really poor last week. And we saw it last week. Stoppages and clearances have been a bugbear of Carlton's side. People are talking about Carlton and saying that that's a positive thing. And then it's a negative thing. It changes weekly depending on who you ask. The big thing, though, when you look at last week was, and a big concern for me, was Carlton have slipped from being one of the top sides with hit-outs per game to now really low based on TDK taking the ruck, and he's not ready. I'm not saying that's one of the excuses, but a primary part is getting first use in this game, and that's been a big issue. Another thing as well, and I've seen a lot of comments about this, Carlton can't zone and their zones need sorting. I can't think of anything that's further from the truth because Carlton genuinely, when it's an organic play, defend incredibly well. And I would say Carlton at the moment, defensive-wise, when we're talking organic, we're very strong. The problem with Carlton at the moment is their turnovers are killing them. And you saw that against Gold Coast. It becomes slow. It becomes stagnant in the second third, particularly around midfield. It gets turned over in midfield. And by that stage, Carlton can't fix a zone because players are overlapping. And that is a key component of it. Carlton will be concerned, though, that you shut the corridor down, no Carlton. And that is going to be a really integral part of this game for me and how Carlton adapt. Can they fix that? And Port will know that, and Port really have shown this year that they change their structure dependent on who they play, and it hasn't worked, but odds will come out at the moment. Carlton's corridor, when it goes, it looks poor. So it's going to be very interesting in that avenue. Now, how did the teams go on selection? It's interesting. Carlton obviously brought Durden back, which is no surprise. Boyd, Plowman, Cripps drop out. Cripps through injury. Parksy comes in for Plowman. I really like that change. And I would expect, just looking at that team, what Carlton are doing, I think you'll see Setterfield or O'Brien drop out, which would mean that the other 3 remaining bench spots are Dow, Zach Williams and TDK. I think that's very important for Carlton because I think what is killing Carlton, and there's a key stat that I want to talk about here, is Carlton's ability to mark around the ground under pressure has killed them on the exit. They ranked second in marks, but you watch the majority of their marks are, lo and behold, through the corridor. Where Carlton are really struggling for me, and this comes into the transition that everyone's talking about. If you watch the VFL, they're very good at transition. They're starting to build that transition game. And you see the seniors are doing the same thing. The problem with Carlton is they get into a habit of Curnow and Mackay dropping really deep and start searching for the ball. And when that happens, there is no one in the goal square. If Carlton start hitting it shallow, which they do from their wide entries, and that's predominantly where it falls off, there is a huge problem. So why I think Setterfield or O'Brien drops out, and I would have a sneaky suspicion with Park's upside in his ability to do a lot of things that Plowman can't, particularly distribute the ball. I wouldn't be surprised to see that O'Brien and Voss rolls the dice, and he focuses on Shearer and Walsh on one wing, O'Brien on the other, looking for deep penetrating entries. And that is a real key cornerstone of what Carlton need to improve. When it becomes shallow, a lot has been talked about Carlton's inside 50 tackling. It was brilliant. It was top 5 in the first 3 rounds. It was woeful last week. And you look at them entries, so shallow, so shallow. When you've got Libbojrjr who's coming for their side, they've really rolled the dice here. I expect that their bench as well will be obvious. I think it's Gray, Hayes, Motlop and Skinner, but they have brought Libbojrjr back for this. Gray's back as well, and I think he will play. But Libbojrjr will be a deadly one there, because that is what Carlton did the last time out against Port Adelaide. It was very shallow, and when you give up possession around 45, 50, 55, half the work's been done for a player of Libbojrjr's calibre. We saw it against Hawks, we saw it against Gold Coast. Transition defence comes unstuck there because everything is riding on it, and that needs to be 2 key cornerstones for Carlton. Someone has to live in the goal square, driving Libbojrjr deep where you can protect his exits, and number 2, one more importantly, your forwards are a front of the ball. And what I mean by a front of the ball is they're ready for confrontation. They're there. Carlton gets so, when it's shallow, it's way too disconnected. There's so much gap, so much space. And also these 2 lines of defence, we talk about walls of defence in the forward 50. They're almost on top of each other. So you beat one, you beat 2. It's really important for Carlton there that they really focus their energies into that. And for me, that is a key cornerstone. And onto the keys of winning for Carlton and Port. For Port, they've got to shut down the corridor. They've got to slow Carlton up down the wing. They've got players like Carl Amon there on that wide who are very intelligent footballers. If they can push Carlton out wide, they know eventually that we react to transition and particularly rebound 50s. And it's interesting, Port are probably the perfect guinea pig because they're the worst side in the comp this year for that. So Carlton have got to look at it this way. It's not something that is a strong suit, albeit them stats are very minute in a 4-game ratio and with no Libbojrjr. But Carlton know that there is hope there. Burn-Jones has been really disappointing, one guy that they expect to really break it out. But Port will be looking at, there's going to be opportunities here that if they can shut it down and they can be really, they've got to be aggressive. What Gold Coast and Hawthorn did was they were super aggressive around stoppages and clearances. And although Carlton did all right against Hawthorn for the majority of the game, it came unstuck elsewhere. Against Gold Coast, you saw the blueprint, and that was Tuck Miller. And they don't really have a Tuck Miller player, but they do have super contested players in Boak, Wines, to name a few, with a little bit of pace there and there from their young contingent. So that is something that they'll be looking for. Carlton, the key to winning here is really the pressure around the forward entries. If we can get that sorted, we will be fine, because that is where they have come unstuck. And also down the back, they still don't have Dixon, who I can't tell you how key is to their system. We know that Harry is one of the most targeted forwards in the comp. For Dixon, he's integral to them. It would be like us using him. So Finlayson comes back in for this one. They've also got Marshall. They've also got Big Mitch, the big Greek. These guys aren't Charlie Dixon, though. So what Carlton have got to do here is really play to their strengths. And with Parksy there, I really enjoy Parksy being around there, because what Parksy has done in the VFL has shown a really great application one-on-one, a phenomenal application, it has to be said. But an underrated part of his game is how much he's worked on his kicking and his ability to bring it to ground and play it to his smalls. That is where Carlton are super strong. And that is where I think the transition needs that layer. It needs to be in the hands of Sard and Doc a hell of a lot more as quickly as possible. And that's something that Plowman doesn't do. Plowman the last 2 weeks, one of my big bugbears with him is he's looked for touch and he's looked for territory. He hasn't looked to play it because he's not that type of player. And we can't bag him for what he's not. Do you know what I mean? What Plowman is you see it on the tin. I said it pre-season. I don't think Plowman suits a game style like Voss is. And so far I've been proven right. I think he wants all of his six down the back to be good users and users of the football and look to use it. And that is a big thing. Now, what will happen if this is a new segment for us? And I've called it the last few times with players and matchups. I think that if we get Shearer and Walsh on the wing for 40% of this game, we definitely win it. If Carlton definitely look for these deep entries and Harry stays in the goal square, I think we win it without a shadow of a doubt. I also think another key to victory for Carlton as well in these matchups is if Carlton find a way to contain Big Mitch and Finlayson using Young and Whittaker and Young and Parks and free up Whittaker in, there's a huge key for victory for Carlton. And I think that if Carlton can do that, they are fine. I think if Carlton put that midfield pressure on like they did against the Doggies and Richmond, they force Port, who have been guilty of over-bombing it inside 50, as we discussed early. Carlton win this game because there's going to be intercept marks galore. If Carlton go with a real defensive mindset, and we saw Setterfield last week over handball on the wing, you don't want your wingers constantly handballing. There is going to be a massive problem for Carlton. If Carlton start bombing that inside 50 and it's shallow and they start becoming stagnant out wide, they're definitely in trouble. Carlton in this game have to avoid the contest and the centre clearances and get the ball out wide and get the game going. They have to learn tempo control in this game, and that is going to be a really big thing for me. This is a huge game for Carlton because they were so poor last week. So poor. And there's a lot of reasons. There's structural reasons, there's energy levels, there's all sorts. And Voss has kind of gone on the tangent that it was a real off day, which I can kind of back up. If they back up that performance though with another off day, the questions will come. But on paper, and this is really important to note, Carlton have got a huge opportunity here in transition. Port bomb the ball inside 50. It is a numbers game. It always has been with Port Adelaide. And these are the times where you see where it is. One thing that Port do is they look to spoil and they look to bring it to ground. They're one of the least teams marked against in the comp. And that is where Carlton have got to look at their talent they've got. Durden's a big in for them. We know he likes to go high up the ground and play across on the feet of his toes. That is huge. And PeterV being back obviously gives Carlton first use. It's got to be noted, Lycett dislocated his shoulder last week. So you want that big body to put a bit of pressure on him. All in all, it's going to be a real tough game. Port tackle like absolute animals. So do Carlton, though, it has to be said. First versus fifth in this one. Carlton second marking side versus a side that stops marks. It's a great battle on paper, and it's one that's going to be intriguing. I'm going with Carlton by 15 in this one. I think they will get the job done. I think it's going to be a nail-biter, though, and I think it's going to put a sword in Port's plans. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if you like the new style of video. I'm always trying to adapt. Much love. I can't wait to welcome you tonight, 5 o'clock for the teams, and also Sunday for the watch-along. Much love. Pommy out.